Welcome back for day 5, our last day of art camp together. And today we get to finish our fun drawing inspired by Wayne Thiebaud, the clown cones. And today we are going to be using the picture we finished yesterday and our pastels. You might also need a paper towel. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start with the background. So I'm going to do mine similar to what we saw with Wayne Thiebaud, but you could pick your own colors if you wanted to. So I'm going to start with, in this box, I'm going to start with that kind of teal color. And I'm also going to need some white. Now every artist works differently with certain materials. So I may be doing this different than your art teacher taught you or that you've seen somebody else do. So if you have a method that you like to do, that's completely fine. This is just how I do it. So to get a background, I'm going to start coloring. Be careful when you get to your pencil lines. And then I also like to use some white. And then this is where I might differ from somebody else. Some people would use a tissue or a paper towel, which is completely fine, but I like to kind of get messy. And so I just use my finger to swirl it all together. And I just keep adding until I make it look like I like it to. Now, hopefully you're working on a surface that is easy to clean because, as you can see, the pastel leaves extra on your paper. And if you were to wipe this like you do with a pencil, it would smear that all over. So instead, what I do is I just pick it up, tap it on my board, and then you can either wipe it up right then, or sometimes I just lay my paper back and it gets on the back of my paper, but it's okay. So completely up to you. So then I'm going to go to this other side. And I'm going to give you a few minutes to fill in all of your background. Now, make sure that you have covered all of the background except for the clown cones. And to do the next part, you are going to need a darker color. So I'm going to pick this blue. Okay, remember that line we had drawn? You can still see it through the pastel. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the darker blue pastel, I'm gonna go back over my line, and now I'm gonna color this blue below the line. And if you want to combine some of the teal back in, you can, and then blend it together. And sometimes I blend using a swirling motion. So we're gonna fill in all below the line with the dark blue. Quick note, the reason we colored it teal to begin with is so that we would have depth and two different colors in there, making some texture and blending. That's what we have so far. So what we should do next is kind of clean up our area just a tad. So I'm gonna place my pastels back in their box. And I'm gonna stack them up so that I can clean my workstation. I'm gonna move my piece of paper off to the side. I'm gonna go wash my hands and get a wet paper towel so that I can wipe my workstation off. Okay, so now that our workstation's clean, we've got our background finished, looks good. So let's go ahead and we're gonna start with the cones and the ice cream. So for the cones, I'm gonna use this light kind of mustard color. I know you're thinking, why isn't she using brown? But we're gonna add some details with the brown later. So you are going to just start coloring the cones with this. And remember, color some, go all the way to that line. Make sure you had washed your hands. If not, you'll get some blending with the whatever was left on there, the blues. So I'm gonna just color some, then I'm gonna smear it right up on that line. Remember, if you wanna get the extra off to see how it's looking, knock it and lay it back down. So I'm gonna give you a few minutes to color both of your cones this mustard color. If you have a mess up happen like I just did, be careful with your fingers, but you can just pick up the color that you used and go back over it. Watch your fingers though. Don't use the wrong color finger. Okay, now use a paper towel, wet paper towel, or go wash your hands, but make sure you get all of that yellow off because the next thing we're gonna do is going to be the clown faces. So you can pause this video if you need to go wash your hands, but my paper towel did most of it. Okay, so for the ice cream, if you look back at Wayne Thiebaud's, and you can Google it, clown cones, you see that he used some white, but he also used some red, just a little teeny bit of red and pink. So maybe he was thinking about strawberry ice cream. So that is what I'm picking up right now, is the white and the red. So I'm just gonna start, and we can go right over the face of the clown because we're gonna go back and add that later. So I'm just gonna color the face of my clowns, including the collars. So I'm putting some white down on the face, even though I can't really see it. And now, he had a little bit of red in here. So I just sketched a little bit of red right on the edge of that circle. And now I'm gonna use my finger to blend the white and the red. In fact, you know, I think I'm gonna start adding a little bit of pink just so it shows up a little better. Maybe I'll use this one. So I just got the pink. Knock your extra off. But I wanna make it a little pinker than I was getting, so I'm adding some pink in here. I'm gonna give you a few minutes to work on your ice cream. So remember, you can use the red, you can use the pink, you could use the white. If you're deciding to go off on your own and you don't really want it to be kind of strawberry ice cream, you wanted it to be something else, maybe chocolate, you could use one of the lighter browns if you want to. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on that. Okay, now let's go back and add just some darker where there might be a shadow. Like there might be a little bit of a shadow underneath the clown's face. So I'm just using my pink, and then I'm going to use my finger to just kind of blend that out. There might be a little shadow. I kind of already have it, but just to remind you, there might be a shadow kind of where the cone and the ice cream come together, because the cone might be a little bigger than the ice cream scoop. That looks better. Now we're going to do the same thing over here, wherever our shadow would have been. Then blend it out. And then underneath the cone. Looking good. Okay, now remember, wipe your hands or pause the video and wash them. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and do the clown's nose. So it was red. So we're just gonna go around. I feel like it looks a little orange, but that's red. If you can't get your pastel to color really well because they're new, you can take a piece of scrap paper and just color really hard to get rid of that edge because you have new pastels in your box. I might use this other red in the box too. Can't get it dark enough. Maybe I'll add some pink. Just can't get that clown's nose. Here I'm just cleaning up the edge of the circle with my white. Then I'm going to do the next nose the same way. Use your white to clean up your edge. I'm going to clean my hands off. And his smile was red too. Clean up your edge with your white. And his eyes were black. The clown's eyes were black, but in my pastel box, I don't have a black. The closest I have is a dark blue. So I'm just gonna use that. Okay, the clown's eyes were black, but in my pastel box, I don't have a black. So I'm gonna go with the dark, dark brown. Okay, there's our faces. Okay, now let's use that same brown. You could use the darker. You got some. There's a lot of shades of brown, so you could go even lighter if you wanted to. But now we're gonna add the details to the cone. So here is. We're just gonna. They're kind of like smiley lines going across the cone. Then you go in the opposite directions to make, so now we're doing smileys this way to make it look like X's across the cone. Same thing over here. We're going to do smileys. And then smileys going this direction. Now, we could stop right there. I think that looks great. But if you want to try something a little bit more advanced, then you can take your darker blue and think about the triangle shape. You can come off the clown, and on this table, you can add a darker area. Go around the edge, close to the object. And this is going to make a shadow where the cone is sitting on the table. So you don't have to do this part, and I just kind of do a imperfect line right there to make the shadow. If you get it on your ice cream, just find a clean finger and clean it off. You can add a little of the darker too underneath the clown's collar where there would be a shadow. And then for this cone, his shadow would be going off the same direction. So we can just do a similar thing. Now when it runs into the next cone, you just leave it alone. Right up to the line we drew. Then remember, add a little bit of that blue line underneath the collar. Use a clean finger to clean it off. The cone and ice cream. Now let's add just a little bit of shading on our cone and our ice cream, which is a sphere. So I'm gonna pick a darker brown, and on the cone, we're just gonna go on the left side, the same side as the shadow, and we are going to just put a little bit of brown on this edge, and then I'm just gonna smooth it out like that to give it a little shading or a little shadow, just like my shadow over there. You can make it darker if you want to, but just go this way to make your shadow. And then the same thing on this one. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of brown here on the edge, same side as my shadow. And then let's add a little bit of shading. I kind of already have it on that one, but I'll just go back and make sure that I have enough so it looks like clean finger, or clean it off. And I'll add some shading there and a little shading here. We already have it underneath, and that looks good. And then on this side too, I'm gonna add some pink right in here. We already have it underneath and underneath, so I'm gonna add just a little bit more right here. If I have anything like got a blue speck, gotta get that off there. Okay, so now we have the shadows in the background and the shading on the cone and the sphere. And there we have our Wayne Thiebaud inspired clown cones. And then just remember, you can use your Sharpie. Sign your name. Pastels kind of mess up your Sharpie, so just use a scrap piece of paper and swirl it in a circle till it comes back to life. Now, pastels still will be messy. So what artists do to keep the pastel from getting on other things or smearing is they use a seal. So you could use something as easy as hairspray. So if you have hairspray at your house, you just get the hairspray, hold it a distance from the pastels, and spray it. You can spray it once, let it dry, spray it again, and let it dry again. I cannot wait to see what you guys did with the clown cones. It is going to be amazing. Don't forget our sketch of the other desserts. You can redraw those and practice with your pastels more, or you could just color them with supplies you have at home.